Yeah, let's start more with this kind of sticking more with the idea of fluorescism. When did you start to realize that it was something that could be a collective healing too? When did you start to look at rather than just a personal understanding about art? When did you start to think actually this be something that the art itself could benefit from?
Mm. Yeah, I think I was, in 2004, so like years ago, I wrote this manifesto called Humanitarian Art Manifesto, which said that we cannot only do art for art's sake, which was an idea that became very prominent from the 18th century Enlightenment and later, in modernism. And I I thought the artist as an artist, I cannot just think about myself. I have to also think about society, because what I'm creating is going out there in the society. It's going to influence them. It's going to have an impact, even if it's subliminal, indirect impact. So in that manifesto, I wrote about art for people's sake, and many artists actually resonated with that. It was signed by artists in about 20 countries. It got translated to several languages, and I'm glad to see that today, participatory art and activist art are part of the mainstream vocabulary and practice. And but what was in a way missing in that manifesto was the aesthetic side. Um, and throughout the years, practicing as a painter and exhibiting, I noticed that we do actually need beauty, because too much of our art started to only contest the cruelties by recreating those cruelties, creating shock effect. And at a certain point it becomes so saturated that I realized the art scene is adding to the cruelties by creating cruel work looking works. So that's also in the meantime, I was also going through my own, healing processes from the experience of war, revolution, changing integration, and all that. And I was studying a lot about the body nervous system, our neurobiology, how does trauma affect our neurobiology. And that's when I came across the new researches in the areas of neuroaesthetics. So studying the how our brain responds to beautiful images of art that we see. And from there onwards, I started integrating that, because I realized we need to be grounded somehow in ourselves, in our bodies, and that the artworks can create that platform for the viewer to get grounded in themselves, go to a different place than the general news that we see.
And I completely agree with you. And like, I feel like this really took form during the pandemic, and we saw this in the post-pandemic era where people were trying to find a way of expressing themselves, and art got this massive resurgence. Can you talk to me about what you thought about that kind of the post-pandemic kind of artistic kind of expression and how that relates to kind of what your work is trying to say?
Mhm. Um, yes, in fact, I think, as you very well mentioned, the pandemic time brought us to many realizations. I think the art museums, started taking out many artworks which can make people sit and ponder. They couldn't, during the pandemic, they couldn't continue showing shocking art and um, too much spectacle, and, because people were in a different state. And also, I think the pandemic brought out the fact that we got a little bit disconnected from each other as people due to the speed of life. And we got also a little bit disconnected from nature itself. So after the pandemic, I think the art scene also has been trying to restore a bit of balance. So in that wave, appreciation for my work also started to increase, because they noticed we do need something that also calms us, makes us sit, think, ponder, let the work grow on us, you know. So definitely, yeah, the post pandemic time created a Civilization spaces. Yeah.
I completely agree. I think that's kind of what's been at the forefront of my mind, especially in preparation for this conversation, because I've realized that this has been a massive shift from and as a society or even as a generation, we've gone from art for art's sake, to provoke, to make statements, to even as an entertainment, to art as an actual need, as a healing factor in our in our culture and like kind of reflective. Okay, how do we build a community around art and find each other that way? And I think this is something that may have been something we'd forgotten because of the fast pacedness of our world that we're trying to rediscover more now than ever. And so like we were turning and looking around for things that could really like bring us together, and arts it's that can really kind of put us in our body and internalize the beauty of art, which is why I'm so fascinated by this conversation, which is why I reached out to you. You mentioned kind of neuroaesthetics. Can you talk to me about that now? What kind of drew you to neuroaesthetics early on?
The first essay which brought the whole idea was by a professor of neuroscience, Professor Ramachandran, who wrote this essay together with a colleague, I think William Hurst, it was, called The Science of Art. So they tried to figure out points that neurobiologically instinctively make a person find an artwork beautiful. So, not because culture told us, not because art history told us, not because critics told us, but because you just see it and you go, oh, that's beautiful, you know? Just like when you look at the sea or you look at the sun or a forest and go, oh, that is beautiful. Nobody comes and tells you when you see a forest with these trees and this green and that is beautiful. You know, there is no rational thinking there. It's more by instinct. So that essay really intrigued me and got me into researching more. And I had a fellowship in Germany in 2019, where I really focused on neuroscientific findings regarding aesthetics, and the with Institute also, which are doing really much research in neuroaesthetics. So I'm always following what are the new points that they have found, and I integrate them. And a lot of it has to do with the natural environment around us, because our bodies recognize nature because we are part of nature. Actually, it's not such a separation, humans and nature. We are part of it. We're one of the species on the earth. So it's a lot of the findings of neuroaesthetics is the application of these um, natural shapes, patterns, colors. A lot of it has to do with that. And then part of it also goes into the evolutionary biology, our survival history, you know. Um, but yes, and then there is also this field which is called sacred geometry. I mean, the word sacred might be misleading at first, but it's the application of geometrical shapes in our own body. You know, you find you look at the I don't know, you look at the walnut and you see it looks like the brain, for example. Or you look at the tree branches and you see it looks like the branches of the veins in our lungs. These types of connections.
From what you said too, I think what my kind of interest goes into, my curiosity really wants to find out is the effects of visual beauty on our emotional states, kind of marrying the two of what you were talking about of neuroaesthetics, but also the kind of the healing factor of art. Can you tell me what you think the effect of beauty is on on ourself, on our emotional states when we're looking at it and just kind of pondering and seeing the kind of I don't even know how to describe it, the kind of the transcendence that it gives us.